we can kick it off. We have a few people here, and I don't know if we're expecting a bunch more, but I think maybe we can get started and say hi and welcome. Thank you everybody for being here. We originally had planned to do a Q&A with Kirsten and I about the course, and we still would like to do that. If you have any questions about the Build Outside the Box Mastermind, we're happy to talk about that and answer any questions. Tomorrow is the last day to register for the Build Outside the Box Mastermind for this session. And after tomorrow, we're going to close the doors until next year. And we have Sasha with us today, so we could talk to her a little bit and ask her some questions. We can ask Sasha questions and see how we're feeling after that. Kirsten, do you have anything to add?
Do we need to briefly introduce ourselves and Sasha real quick?
Yeah, go for it.
Hi, I'm Kirsten Jacobson. I am here in my Earthship that I built I finished it in 2006 and lived here for about 6 years. And then we moved to an Earthship in the mountains. And this is now a nightly rental, but it's fun being here today. We just got a ton of snow and it's gloriously warm inside the building right now. Jean Hayakawa, hi Sha. Jean and I known each other for about more than 10 years now, I think, when she came to Taos, New Mexico to be an intern at Earthship Biotecture. And so I'm not going to completely, you can introduce yourself too, Jean. I'm just kind of like saying who you are. We know each other from there, and we worked a lot together with the Earthship Academy and the Earthship intern program. And we traveled around the world doing projects together. And we both left the company at different times. Jean worked there for a long time. I worked there for a really long time. And about 2 years ago, I forget who told me. I heard from a mutual friend that Jean was asking what I was up to, and I was curious what she was up to. And we kind of reconnected via Zoom while she was living in Japan with her son and with her husband, Shaw. And we talked about wanting to create something together. And our first idea, which is not necessarily a dead idea, but it's kind of been on pause for a while, was to create a workbook and information for people to help them stage their project once they decided they wanted to build an off-grid or sustainable building, because we had a lot of insight into that. We started working on that. We actually have a bunch of materials, checklists, and information for that. And then we decided to do something smaller in scale, which was a class about how to host sustainable building workshops, which we both have a lot of experience in. And we had that partially developed. And then Jean came up with this awesome idea of building the mastermind with people that we already knew, and then some people that we didn't know yet, from all over the world, from all different backgrounds in natural and alternative building, and kind of asking each person, each expert, to cover one particular building material in the mastermind. And we thought it was going to be a quick wintertime project, and it ended up being a bit more work, but an awesome learning experience, and it continues to be an amazing learning experience. So that's how I know Jean, and that's how we met Sasha as well. So who I could introduce also. I feel like I'm introducing everybody. Jean, do you want to hop in? I feel like
Sure. Yeah. Thank you, Kirsten. No, that was great. Yeah, my name is Jean, and this is my husband, Shaw. And so yeah, we started on this project thinking, like Kirsten said, like it was going to be like a quick, last winter, just will take a couple months to, and then we realized the scale of the project was huge. And we kind of we shifted gears to this project, the Build Outside the Box Mastermind, because we, with our experience at Earthship, realized that we didn't really have, we had both kind of worked with some other materials and some other building styles, but didn't really have any real in-depth knowledge of anything other than Earthship, because we had spent so much time there, realizing that there was no resource really for anybody could go and learn everything, or not, maybe not everything. We're not there yet, but we wanted to incorporate as many different building methods and materials for people to kind of choose what works best for them, because it's a very personal experience, and it is gonna you're going to want to consider many different factors before you build a house for yourself or build any kind of structure. So we decided, like, great, this is a good opportunity for us to kind of reach out and, collaborate with other people in the natural and alternative building world, because we've seen, or what we've become to understand, is that this really needs to be a collaborative experience to get this building, natural and alternative building, into the mainstream. So thank you. So my husband Shaw has been helping us also with our video editing and marketing. If you want to say hi, I don't want to.
All right. Hi, yeah, my name's Shaw. Yeah, I've just been doing video editing and helping with this and that, and I've kind of been like the first student of the course, and it's been so enlightening to learn. It's amazing to learn so much from all these different people. Like, no one person can really teach all the knowledge that's in this course, like the combined experience of all these different people, like Sasha here, like one amazing class that Sasha had. Just take one class at a time, and you're just in a whole new world, whole new material, whole new building style, and it's awesome to learn the application of it. And if it could work in your climate, then you get really excited about it.
Thanks, Shaw. Yeah, so we have Sasha Rabin here with us. She was actually, I think, the first instructor whose class that we filmed. I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Jean. And Sasha has been doing earthen building, specifically cob, for many years, and worked at Quail Springs Permaculture, and now has her business Earth and Shelter, and is an amazing force and educator for cob in particular, but also natural, healthy earthen buildings in general. So we want to thank Sasha and welcome her.
Thank you. Yeah, my name is Sasha Rabin. I've been working with these materials for around 20 years, and just the thing that is on my mind right now, just after both of those shares, is just the concept of the things taking longer than than we think they're going to. I started off doing an internship around 2002 with the Cobb Cottage Company up in Oregon. And I think every project I've ever been part of, we had, the idea that it would just be this, like, oh, this summer, like, we can do it in a summer, and then it takes way longer. And, I think that that's both a blessing and a curse, because there's certain things that are so beautiful about actually taking the time to do something. And that's a really different framework than we tend to have in our modern day culture. But I think in a lot of times with the work that we do, we equate so much to like time and efficiency. And I really enjoy thinking about like Mayan pyramids, where your entire lifetime, is just like one little section of some building or offering or something like that. So I don't know where all that came from. That was just what I felt called to share right now after hearing you both. Some things that are really worthwhile take a lot more time than we expect. So I built my first structure that I lived in probably 15 years ago, or more, actually. Closer to 20 years ago, and lived in it for a while. And then since then I've built three and a half different structures that I've lived in for a while and then moved out of. And right now I have this great blessing of living in an already built house with a baby. We moved in this summer when it was really hot in the structure that we had been living in. So grateful for this house, and also looking forward to building my own house again someday. And yeah, it was just, we got down into the low 20s last night here, and there was something going on with our water, and it was so weird for my husband and I. Like, it's the first time in decades where I'm like, I don't really know where those water lines are. And something is frozen in there, but like, are they in the slab? Like, I don't know. And I think that there's so many reasons that we're all drawn to these things, especially in these times where most of us are very disconnected from just the basic things of like, where are water lines if they freeze, and how do I fix that? So yeah, I'm sort of on the other side of that for the moment, of just like living in this other structure that I don't know all the ins and outs of, and I don't know how to, find that spot that the plumbing is frozen if to get the shower to work. So feeling also extra appreciative of just the journey of the connection to those things, and so many people's desires right now to have more of a connection to that which sustains us, to our food systems and our housing, and the desire, the knowledge of how to fix something when it breaks, and just having that deeper connection with our built environment, with the walls and the buildings that shelter us.
Do you think that interest is growing right now? The interest in alternative living and self-build and all that?
Yeah, I think that I was watching one of the reels that you guys shared that was Sigi Coco talking about just sort of like the trajectory of like change, and sort of reflecting on that. And it was like, just, yeah, there is a tipping point at a certain point, right? Like for me in my trajectory with this work, when I started, it was a very small group of people building with cob. I knew everyone in, say, California. Like I could tell you, oh, there's this cob building or this little project happening. And now, of course, there's like way, way, way more. And now, like the latest project that I'm working on is we have a small grant, and we'll probably be raising a little more money, but we're working on getting the cob appendix adopted in all the states, or as many states as we can, depending on their different adoption cycles, code adoption cycles, which is different in every state. So that is huge. That's a huge difference, right? Like just with it being like such a niche out there thing that no one's ever heard of it, to like fast forward 20 years, which like is not that long. And we're, there's a cob, we say it's a cob code. Technically it's an appendix, slightly different, but basically the same thing. And now we're working on getting it adopted in different states. So yeah, it feels like in the time that I've been involved in this work, it's a huge change. And I think that, a lot of people are just have a really deep desire for something that feels more connective and more authentic and more like something, right? Like maybe we don't even know what that thing is, but something more than sort of what we're given when we just go about our days.
I think that's really interesting to consider that for thousands and thousands of years, all humans have lived in probably some sort of earthen building. And as you're saying, in the last 20 years, it's up until that point, 20 years ago, we have become so disconnected that earthen buildings have become such a abstract, consideration. But now it's, you've led this kind of, or you and other people have led this effort to come back into touch with that, which is kind of really cool to see that on the timeline of human existence, like where we are with that. It's kind of cool.
Well, and I think that one important thing that I, point out a lot is that, like, especially here in the US, in certain parts of the US, but like, we've come to think of earthen building or natural building or all these things as this totally like unusual, niche, like weird thing. And yet still today, it is the most common, earth is the most common building material on the planet. Like it still is. And it's, I think, particularly relevant when we get into talking about natural disasters, and the media hype we see is that these earthen building fell, and it's it changes the context when we go, oh, it's the most common building material on the planet. Okay, there is some catastrophes that happen here and there. There's also a lot of wooden buildings that burn in fires and et cetera, et cetera. So it's like, yes, it is really unusual and niche now, and it's also not. And I just think that's an important context to remember too, because it also makes it feel more accessible and more possible.
Yeah. Yeah. That's what, when we were talking to Alice Coe, one of the masterminds, and she, who teaches about Adobe bricks, I was talking to her and asking her, like, why do you think this is a great alternative to conventional building? And her responses was more like, well, I think that this is more like the conventional, but like, this is the original. This is, what we have now is the alternative, so I thought that was a really interesting take, and a really good way to shift your mind and thinking about the way that we're building now versus the way that we've been building as a human species.
Right. And it's interesting. We often like use the word traditional in a weird way in talking about building. People talk about traditional building and they're like referring to like stick frame, building, because that's like the most common thing they see. But yeah, it's kind of speaking to that too. It's it isn't actually traditional.
Does anyone have any questions for Sasha? We have more questions. We can keep talking to Sasha forever too. Or do you have any questions for us or any questions about the mastermind? People can pop in or they can drop a question in the chat too.
Cool. Well, Kirsten, do you have any questions you want to?
Well, we had a bunch here, but I'm also enjoying the flow of where we're going with this. But Sasha, and you we were just kind of hovering around this idea, but what do you think the biggest misconceptions are about natural building or myths that are around right now?
I think it's sort of, it's so like, I think that question is very, sort of niche.
Is it a leading question?
Well, it's like, it's so like specific to individual different communities, right? Like sometimes in my world, just like, no, everyone's on board, which that's so not the case. But I think that, but can you repeat the question? Sorry, I just got sidetracked by reading the and then I got onto 5 other trains of thought, but I know I did have an answer to it.
The question is, what do you think the biggest misconceptions are about natural building or myths? I think people, I don't want to say what I think, but what do you think?
Yeah, well, I want to hear what you think too, but what I was going to say, what came to mind, and then I just like my brain went south, is that it is illegal. I hear people say that a lot, like, oh, it's illegal. And it's like, well, for one, it's never been illegal. Like it has had different journeys of pathways to get a building permitted, but it's never illegal. There are like avenues. So that's something I hear a lot, like, oh, and then now that there's a code for COB, it's now legal. So kind of misconceptions around the way the permitting works is probably one of the things that I hear the most of, that just, and it is so complicated and confusing and inaccessible. That process here in the US is very inaccessible.
I agree. I think that's people think it's just impossible to do, or also that it's only for a specific group of people that might want to do it and not for just regular folks can live this way, and you don't have to be a survivalist or a cult member or a hippie or any of these things, that it's comfortable life that any person or family could want to live this way. So yeah. We have a couple of questions. Yeah. So could you provide a little more information about what the course will cover, who it's for, etc. Yes, the course has different modules within the course. It starts with Introduction to Natural Building Principles with Siggy Coco, and she talks about understanding the climate that you're going to be building in as the primary consideration. It's easy to see photos online and fall in love with one of these building styles. Oh, I want an aircrete dome or an earthship or a straw bale or whatever. But understanding the climate that you're building in, the challenges that you might have to heat and cool your building and put it on the site, and what's really going to make it work is the first consideration she talks about. And then she has introductory courses on passive solar design, which can be applied to any of the different building techniques in the Mastermind, and talks about thermal mass and insulation. And all the materials that we cover in the course are either super dense thermal mass that store temperature, or very light, fluffy, insulative materials that keep temperature from moving from place to place, or some blend in between, like light straw clay or hempcrete. Both kind of have these qualities, and understanding how those work thermally will help you design the building. So we have the introductory classes, then we have a whole module on earthen buildings, a module on insulated buildings, and each of the instructors' course classes is about an hour and 15 minutes to 2 hours long, where each instructor presents what their material that they're covering is made out of, where it works well, kind of what the general cost is, what the pros and cons are, what the environmental benefits of the building material are, and with slides. And a lot of them also have supporting scientific information, like Sasha has the fire testing that was done on Cobb, and there's people that have done structural testing on their materials. And then we have a follow along workbook, so people can go through and assess as they go what they're looking to do for their project, and how each material may or may not work for them, to help them kind of narrow down what they want to do. And then at the end of the workbook, we get more into starting to do a preliminary design for your project. And so this kind of ties into the next question about, is everything released all at one time? And yes, the pre-recorded classes are all accessible right away, but we have monthly Q&A lives with the masterminds, and we have an ongoing private community where people can ask questions of the masterminds. They can ask questions of Jean and myself and other students that are in the group. And we email all the students in advance of the lives, and we also post on social media about that. Jean, did I cover those first two questions?
Yeah, I just wanted to add that, yeah, that was great. So we, even though we only have a limited registration period of time, because we do accept students in sessions, which helps us to be able to, manage the students and their questions, and have a time frame or a timeline where we're teaching and hosting and updating the course in between the sessions. Although there is a limited registration window, the course itself is self-paced. So once you register, you are immediately granted a lifetime access, and you can move through the course at your own pace. But while that is happening, we're also having live calls or live Q&A sessions or classes with our masterminds. And those, if you cannot make those are also recorded and added into a live archive that lives in the course. And as we're updating the course, in between the sessions of the registration windows, we are going to be continuing to add new masterminds and new material to the course, which once you register for the course, you have a lifetime access to all the materials, as well as all of the updates that we add to the course as well. And I wonder, and if you don't be concerned about missing lives on Instagram, because what we're we've been hosting Instagram lives during the registration as more of a way to promote the course and and for people to ask questions about the course and feature some of our masterminds so people can kind of get to know, who's involved and what the course has to offer. And, some of our awesome masterminds have been joining us, which has been excellent. But like Kirsten was just saying, we will be sending out emails ahead of time. We don't have like a full long-term schedule set for our live classes, but we will be scheduling them monthly. So, but we will send an email out at least a week out, a week in advance, as well as post in the community. And if you can't make it, we will upload the recording to the live archive as well. So I hope that all of that covers these questions.
And if you can't make it, you can send your questions ahead of time and we'll ask them of the masterminds as well. And you can get them answered that way too.
Yeah. Also in the course, in addition to all the masterminds presenting on their materials, there's also Moeen, also with nature-based solutions, talking about different ways to incorporate nature-based solutions into your design process. And then we have Rachel Goldlust from Natural Building Australia, and she covers planning and permitting. So that's
Finding land.
also, and finding the right land for you, which is huge consideration. So yeah.
I think another
Great.
piece just to add, like, and I've been involved with and taught a lot of different online courses, and just the part that there is a platform where everyone can interact with each other is such an important piece. And I think that one of the, I think everyone who's like moving in the direction of this or expanding into the direction of some of these online courses, it's like there's pros and cons, right? Like we couldn't all be here teaching this together in person. And then the challenge is to figure out how to actually have students still interact with each other and still like, realize that like, oh, you're taking this class too. And you're also in my neck of the woods. Like, so just that there's also a sweet, like online space where people can post photos of their projects and introduce themselves and say where they live and things like that.
Yeah, from the last group, we kind of had little, it hasn't really formed into subgroups yet, but this new cohort is going to join everyone in the existing community. So it's slowly going to grow, and we're going to organize it, either, well, we don't know yet. We could organize it regionally. We could organize it by what phase you are in your project. Like, hey, I'm looking for land, but we have like people in the Northeast that are in this group that have got projects going on, and an architect in the Northeast who's designing as well. And Siggy's based there. And then we have people in the Midwest. There's people doing a series of aircrete domes on their land in Ohio. Another guy wanting to do domes. We've got a lot of people in the Southwest here. Some people that are actually in Taos. Students in Australia and New Zealand. And we have another instructor who's from New Zealand, Verena Mader, who we added into this course. And so it's been interesting and good. And on the lives and in the community, we've been able to have people, we've learned from the students different connections and different ideas regionally based on who's participating. So that's been exciting to see. And people have been starting to help each other on their projects, which is kind of like really exciting to me, because I think when you're building your own house, getting to do hands-on work, either through workshops or volunteering and learning from other people that are doing it, is so, so important as you get started. And if you kind of pay it forward into this world, it'll come back to you like tenfold. And when you're ready, like, I'm going to have, pizza and beer on Saturday at my house, and we're going to work on it, people will just show up and help you out, and you'll get so much done. And it's really awesome.
Yeah, so the course is in itself like just a wealth of knowledge and inspiration. But then, yeah, as you're saying, like the community is where you can make real life connections, and yeah, it's so much room for growth. Like you continue to learn and ask questions and get great feedback from like-minded people. To really join a real community, it's really great to see.
Jean, I'm just typing something, or should I just answer this question? I'm starting to type
Sure.
and now I realize I have this question about, well, the masterminds cover the recipes and construction process for the materials. I'm interested in this to include how to do earthen floors, plasters and walls, etc. Yes, to some degree, but the specific recipes and mixes are really going to be based on the soil and earth in your area. So several of the masterminds talk about how to test your soil and what the general ratios and recipes they use are on their projects. But when you actually start building is when you're really going to hone your own recipe. At where I built my house, there's a lot of other earthships in this area, and people kind of had their general recipes for like, okay, what kind of mud do we want to use to pack out? What kind of mud do we want to use for the scratch coat? How much sand do we add? How much straw do you want to have in it as you get closer to finish? But then when I actually built my house, the dirt on my specific site was a little bit different. And so as you're kind of like building and working with the materials, you get to know them and understand, oh, is this, sticking to my trowel and pulling the wall apart as I'm trying to, apply it. Maybe it has too much clay. Is this not sticking at all? How much do I need to sift this? So yes, we have some general information, and we're going to have classes on finishes and talk about earthen floors and plasters as well. I hope that kind of semi answered that question.
Yeah, and we also with Sasha's live class, we did a soil test challenge with the community, and we had people based on information that Sasha gave us and gave all of us, the community and ourselves, information on how to test soil. And so we conducted a challenge within the community so that everybody could, using the steps that Sasha provided, test the soil around us and see if, it would work, or based on, I guess, the parameters. Yeah, so that was kind of fun. Where I lived, where I was staying, personally, the soil in my area was not suitable for construction. It was really, what was it? It was like just really organic material. Sasha, do you want to speak to this maybe a little bit more too?
Yeah.
That was fun.
Yeah, I feel like a few years ago, the other like online natural building class that I sort of created and was part of, and we did it for 3 years, and we're not going to probably do it again, was more of a hands-on course, which just sounds a little bit like what you're asking about. But I think that there is a limit to what I feel like is safe to teach people via like internet. So I feel like this course is such a perfect like introduction to these things, and the knowledge and the tips to like how to then delve deeper into like actually building of your own house. But the online course that we did an oven. We did like smaller projects, like a garden wall and an oven, just sort of feeling like I don't want to claim to be able to like teach someone something that is going to have like a roof over their head over the internet. And have people watched YouTube videos and then learned how to build their own shelter, like absolutely. And that's totally fine too. And we all start with different amounts of, knowledge and information and all that stuff and learn in different ways. But, for the most part, like what I cover is more introductory, but given lots of resources of like, and here's how to start to get to know your soil, and here's how to start doing samples, and here's how to, how to get to know those things, I would say is sort of more like I speaking from the part that I offer. And also resources on how would you go, where and how would you go to get more information. And so this course is like such a broad range of techniques, and you might find a technique that you didn't even know existed, and then want to learn more about that, or
Right. And maybe even, testing your soil or starting to understand your materials in the beginning might dictate which technique you end up choosing. An example being with earth bag construction and with earthships, you can pretty much fill earth bags or tires with just about any type of dirt when you're ramming them and filling them. And it doesn't really have that much effect on the structure. But if you're mixing, adobe bricks, or you're doing cob, or you're doing light adobe, or you're doing certain types of rammed earth. I mean, like the guys from Firewall, when they do structural rammed earth, they get uber specific about their mix. And in fact, they do every mix design for the project individual for their client. They don't even like give people a list of what materials to buy. They go ahead of time. They send all the aggregates and soils through mesh screens down to like 1 micron, and they weigh the silts and sediments and make test cylinders that go to a GM engineering lab where they get compressed until they crack. And like, for them, it's full on science. It isn't like, oh, I'm just going to add like 1 more scoop of the sand here. And so I think knowing a little bit about your site might influence what method you end up picking. Okay.
Question about the schedule of.
Yes. The individual classes are pre-recorded, and then yes, there's live calls with the teachers and Q&As. We do them once a month. There is not we don't have the full schedule for the next several months, but the first call that we're going to do is in December. Jean, isn't it like the 11th? Maybe I'm just making that up. With Mojave Center, who they're doing earth bag construction, but also straw bale and other types of sustainable construction in the Mojave Desert. And then in the beginning of January, we're going to do a call with Dr. Martin Franey from Earthship Eco Homes. And he did a thermal study about rammed earth tire walls that are earth bermed in a passive solar situation, and came to Taos and put all sorts of temperature sensors inside the building, in the back of the room, in the greenhouse space outside the building. And he graphed his results for his PhD thesis, and has learned a lot about different building materials and different designs and how they function. He's also done structural work with putting rammed earth tires in a lab where they're subjected to lateral forces to test the strength for that. And they've turned out quite well. So yes, live Q&As once a month for all of eternity, I guess, the foreseeable future, your lifetime and beyond.
I just wanted to add, if anyone is deciding to sign up, they can use Sasha's code to get a hefty discount from the course price. So Sasha, can you share your code? Oh, there is.
Yeah, it's COB 100. I just put it in the chat too.
Great. Yeah, you get over $100 off the course price if you use the code COB 100.
Sasha, I have another question for you from the ones I had in the beginning. What are some questions people interested in building their own natural home can ask themselves when they're first starting on this journey? Can or should, well, I don't like the word should, but could ask themselves.
Well, so I get a lot of inquiries of people that are like, I want to, that sort of have some idea of what they want to build. And I don't know, one of the questions we can spend a lot of time and get really into all of the pros and cons, and this is appropriate for this site and this is appropriate for that site. And one of the questions I really love reflecting back to people, which I think is a really nice piece of this course, is like, what are you just drawn to, and what are you falling in love with? Like, what are you just drawn to and want to go for? And while I think that it's worthwhile to really like look at the whole big picture and all the pros and cons, I also think it's really worthwhile to just like see what systems and techniques you really just fall in love with. So I don't really, I think that I did the exact same thing again and kind of got sidetracked from
Oh,
the
that's
question.
no,
That's what came to
that's totally.
mind.
I think that staying inspired when you're trying to build something like this is super important. And so you can have all the analytical pros and cons, like you said, and all the reasons why you should do it one way or shouldn't do it another way. Like in my house here, I built this bathroom out of bottle bricks. So, you know, bottles cut in half, taped together to make a brick. They're clear bricks. It's a round bathroom. And if anyone wants tips about or advice about why you should or shouldn't build a round bathroom and some of the things that I would do differently if I was going to build another round bathroom. But I wanted this cylinder inside my house. And my original vision was I want it to be floor to ceiling bottle bricks. And so I, looked at the diameter and started doing some math about, okay, how many bottle bricks is it going to take to do one time around the circle and then up around the circle? And it was going to be like 6,000 bottle bricks, which means cutting 12,000 bottles in half and cleaning them and matching them up and taping them together. And I was just like, no, I'm so not doing that. It would look amazing. And then I was like, okay, I'm not going to do any bottle bricks. I'm like, no, I really want them. And so I compromised and I have about 1,200 bottle bricks in the middle. And it gives the effect of, and it was still a ton of work, an insane amount of work. But it gives the effect and it looks super cool. It looks incredible at night. And, as I was trying to finish building the whole house, I'm like, well, really, really great. Because I was living here. It would be great to have running water right now or a refrigerator but I'm working on this, stupid bottle wall. And yet at the same time, like picturing it finished and being excited about the finished look was part of what kept me going, even though I knew it wasn't like the number one priority for my comfort and sanity or whatever. But it's really important to be inspired and choose something that you're going to love.
Yeah. So I think, back to your question of like, what questions should people ask themselves is like, like what is truly inspiring, and I think I can definitely, I have my like list of bottle brick equivalent stories as well, and definitely can relate to the like, I don't have running water, but I have this beautiful sculptural element in my house.
Yes, I made a mosaic. I don't have a refrigerator, right. But I have a mosaic. We have Shaw. Are you still there? Because maybe you can help me answer this question from Justine. Will we be able to create local groups in the online community so we can connect with one another locally? I think yes, you'll be able to request that and we can make the groups. Is that right, Shaw?
Yeah, we can make groups. I think the thing I guess we're trying to do is not jump the gun and make the groups for people, and we're going to use the feedback from the community and create what works for people, so if that is something that you want, and that makes a lot of sense, and if you want to connect with people locally, then definitely I think that's something we could do.
It's tricky though, probably, correct me if I'm wrong, but it probably relates to like some regions will really make sense for people, and then some regions might be kind of outliers.
Yeah.
Right. And in the beginning, when we're merging the past session with this session, and in the beginning, when we're all getting to know each other, I think we want to stay as one group, like for the beginning, so we can all introduce ourselves and kind of see where everybody's at with their projects and just get an overall picture of, what this group or cohort looks like all together. And then, like Shaw said, kind of be guided from there in terms of what everyone wants and what's going to make the most sense to be effective and useful for people.
Yeah, all the students are encouraged to introduce themselves, tell us a little bit about yourselves, where you're from. Like we love to hear that, so that we can offer as much help as possible. And that's obviously going to be the easiest way to connect with people who are in your area, because you'll immediately like, I live there too. Like, come check out this build and then more.
And people can put pictures too. If you have land already, there's people in the first group that put pictures of their land and their existing, one fellow is living in a yurt while he's building. And so kind of giving people an idea about what their existing lifestyle is like and what they're hoping to do. And maybe we'll even start sharing sketches of what people want to build and get feedback on that. One thing we did at the Earthship Academy was have people, in the beginning of the session, they would draw their dream Earthship and they'd go through the whole month, and then they would present it to everyone, but critique their own design and what they would change based on what they would learn. And it was a pretty funny and fun and educational experience. People, your house design gets a lot smaller after you pound a few tires. That was one thing that happened. And people would, well, yeah, I mean, really, that happened all the time when we did like weekend workshops too. People are like, yeah, we're going to build this 9,000 square foot Earthship, and then we pound tires for 3 hours. And they're like, I mean, 900 square foot Earthship. But not that it's about discouraging people, but kind of like applying what they've learned, along the way.
Yeah, and it's so much easier to heat and cool a smaller space. So as much as people are like, I want this huge house, it's like, once you do that, it's gonna take a lot more effort to heat or cool it to be comfortable. So
I think it's a great idea to design where you can add on. It's to start really small, but design in a big sliding glass door that can get removed to, extend it out if you need to. But for the most part, yeah, people will be happy they went small.
I built my house in 3 phases. I did a 120 square foot dome, microscopic little dome that I lived in. And then I added about 450 square feet to that, a greenhouse in front of it. And that had not sliding doors, but had French doors to the outside, which is how I added on this whole end of the building. And originally I was going to take the wall with the French doors out and have the whole space flow through and be open. But on the day we were going to take that wall out, I realized, it'd be nice if you have this space where you could still close those doors and someone could be in the kitchen, someone could be still sleeping in the bedroom, and kind of have like these separate spaces. And it still feels really open, but there's no way I could have done my project if I'd started with the whole building. I'd still be enclosing the building right now, phasing it was the key. So that's a good way to go. Cool. Sasha, what's your next build project going to be? What kind? You're going to build a cob house?
I don't know. I don't know. We're living in this house right now, and probably our next project would be a permitted structure. And yeah, there's so many different design criteria. One of which is like there is a desire for people to start using the cob code and like see how it goes and then be able to like make changes for it. So part of me has a desire to do that. But my goal right now with the baby is to not take on projects. So it's all in the dream phase, but eventually we will, I think.
Yeah. Shaw, what would you build from the mastermind right now if you could just magically choose one of these types and start building?
Wow, yeah. Well, we're in Taos right now, and it's just dumped a whole bunch of snow. So that, gives you a lot more to consider when you start realizing the reality of the coldness and the having to make your structure they'll bear the load of snow, and I don't know, what would you build after taking Mastermind? What would you want to build?
What's the question?
Like, after taking the Mastermind, like, what are you inspired to build yourself? Like, I'm trying to think.
From which material?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
I have there's a few that I would like to potentially combine together, and I don't know. We were thinking something with thermal mass on the inside and some insulation, some heavy insulation on the outside.
Like, cob to me is just like, you just want to build out of earth and clay and like straw bale. Like, I feel like having that insulative and then having thick clay and mass on the inside. So yeah, I don't know.
There's good clay and Taos too.
Yeah, it's good clay and Taos.
So I remember you saying after you were working on each video, after each one, you were like, oh, now I want to do this. And
I know.
Yeah, totally.
Because people are like so inspiring, like hearing their journey and their own, learning about the materials and then building with it for many years and then teaching it. It's like, you can't help but get inspired, and interested and intrigued. And they all have such a good case, to make. So yeah. But I think going through the course, you will have a really clear idea based on where you live, what's going to work. There's good information to really guide you in the right direction. But yeah, definitely. It was difficult after every single one. Was just like, oh man, this is so cool.
Yeah, but we also didn't really know we were going to end up, because we've been moving around a lot, and so we were living in Japan for a couple of years, and then we just we were in New York, and then now we're back in Taos. So
Japan is extremely humid, so and Taos is extremely dry. So you've got it's ridiculously different. Like, in Japan, you've got a big mold issue.
Yeah.
You just don't have the same issue here. So there's many design and material considerations that will change. So yeah, that's probably why we've been not made a decision.
Yeah. But now we're looking at land, or we're in the searching for land process, which is interesting. And really great to have insight from Rachel's class too, in terms of like what exactly we're looking for, what's going to be suitable for us, what is going to facilitate, what we want to build for ourselves. I know that sounds kind of vague, but there's a lot of things that we have to consider now. And while we've been building for 12 years now, and so there's like a lot of the steps in the building and planning process that I'm familiar with, but it's always started out already with a piece of land there. You know what I mean? So now it's like, now we are taking a step back and being like, okay, well, now we need to get the land, so. And
now it's ours. It's like, what are we gonna do?
Yeah, it's different.
It's not
totally
someone
different.
else's house. So
yeah. Cool.
And Kirsten, what about you? If you were to start from scratch, what's inspired you? What's it?
Well, I love rammed earth because, I love plastering. And so I would never not want the opportunity to plaster something, but the layers of earth that it takes to make a tire wall flat in terms of the pack out, the scratch, and the finish plaster is so much work. And the idea of, having forms, ramming the earth, pulling the forms off, and the wall is done on the inside and the outside of the wall, to me is just absolutely mind-blowing. That being said, I've worked around the ramming equipment they use to do rammed earth, and it's exceptionally loud. It runs off a massive compressor with a diesel generator, so you're smelling diesel exhaust and listening to a really loud. I mean, I guess you could, I don't know, you could pay someone to do the walls for you and do the rest of the house, but I love the modern aesthetic. You know, I went with the finishes in my earthship. I went with modern look, and I feel like rammed earth goes with that. But I would still want to use all the principles of an earthship in terms of water harvesting and gray water treatment and solar power and off grid and all the systems. So, yeah, possibly rammed earth. But I also love Adobe bricks, and I love cob, and would love to build something super simple and small and just by hand. I love the, you know, self-empowerment of just having your wheelbarrow and a hoe and a little bit of dirt and straw and water and just building stuff and just touching the materials.
Yeah, I mean, that's a huge thing to consider, like just the process of building the house, like not just the end result, but like enjoying it, and back to like staying inspired. Like you may not be that inspired if you have to listen to the compressor and stuff, but like it may be really inspiring to work like with family and friends to, you know, have really tactile materials and have fun, you know, that way. But everything's on a spectrum.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah. And I don't buy into this idea that one method is like easier, that like it's gonna be so much easier if you do this instead of this. Like that was always a thing, like, oh, earthships are too labor intensive, just do earth bag. Well, I've done earth bag and that's labor intensive too. And, you know, even if you're, you know, pinning straw bales together and plastering that's still, you know, you have to accept that there's going to be some work involved. You know, if you don't want any work, then you can buy a, you know, boxable synthetic house on a trailer that comes and pops up, and you live in that, and you're fully dependent on the grid, and you're breathing the toxins that it's made out of, and you're okay with that. You know, otherwise, you know, building your own house is going to involve some work.
Totally.
And maybe just to add to that, there are options of paying. So, I mean, like, you know, not that everyone has to do it all themselves. You can also hire someone to build a beautiful handmade house too. Yeah, I feel like a lot of people have a conception that straw bale is like faster than cob, and it's like, yes, the walls going up might be, and then all the other layers, of course, can be a lot more. So it's true. It's just different amounts of work in different phases.
Cool.
Totally.
Jean, what do you think? Did we cover everything? I want to.
Yeah, I think this was great. We had some good questions. And you know, if anybody has any other questions, you can send us an email. We're at info@webuildoutsidethebox.com. And like I said, registration is, we're going to put that in the chat. Registration is open until tomorrow night. Closes at 11:59 p.m. PST. But if you're interested in joining, now is the time. We'll be open again next year. If you are looking to join and you want to use Sasha's coupon code for a 20% discount, her code is COB100. And other than that, thank you so much for joining us. And thank you, Sasha, and thank you everybody else that's here, for being here with us today.
Thank you, Sasha.
Thanks, everyone. My
Thanks,
pleasure.
everyone.